Okay, so today's topic is delegated authority. So, what is it and why does it matter? Delegated authority is when a person in authority delegates or gives part of his authority or responsibility to another. You see this in one of Jesus' parables where the landowner gives authority and responsibility to three different servants. They perform differently and they're rewarded differently. In the business world, you see this where, let's say, there's someone that starts up their own business. Kind of as an easy example, but I say pretty much any business. The boss, the owner, the manager, whatever you want to call it, in theory, is capable of doing pretty much anything in the business. Now, it's not always true, but go with it for a minute. So, the owner works and builds and develops and markets and etc., whatever the product is, whatever they're making, whatever service they're providing. And at some point, he gets enough work that he can't do it by himself. So he hires someone else. And he hires somebody that is capable of performing either the same task that he's been performing or a subset, a small part of what he's doing to help lighten his load. Now you start scaling this out, and the business owner hires a lot of people. And sometimes if they're kind of weak in certain areas, maybe accounting, or if the company gets big enough, you need an HR person, human resources. All of a sudden, there are things that the owner or manager is not capable of doing that he delegates out because it's part of his responsibility. He needs to manage his company well. He needs to provide certain services to his employees, like a human resource officer, that he himself either doesn't have the time to do or doesn't have the capability to do, so he delegates that out. And so, in a way, every person in the company operates under this person's authority. They serve as part of his responsibility. So let's say he grows the company to 100 and they make something, or they're a pest control company and they serve clients. Well, every single person in that company represents that company in a way, and ultimately represents that owner. So when they go out and they perform a job, if the company was small and had an employee of one, the owner would be doing it. But now that he's expanded out, an employee is doing it in his stead, in replace of him, in his place. And so this is the idea of delegated authority. It's actually delegating done right. And it's also this idea of one person taking on the responsibility of another, because ultimately those employees have to answer to their boss if they don't perform well, or the boss might reward them if they do perform well. We see this in the church as well. In the church, in theory, the pastor can preach, be the Sunday school teacher, be the secretary during weekdays, that kind of stuff. But over time, the church grows, and the pastor has to delegate out things. All of a sudden, there's multiple Sunday school teachers with multiple classes. He can't be in multiple places at once. Plus, there's practical side effects of that, because a Sunday school class of 50 just is not as beneficial as a class of 15. And so sometimes for group dynamic reasons, for other purposes, it's best to scale out, even if you have the space not to. I mean, I know of a church that at 9 o'clock on Sunday mornings, they have Sunday school, and it's pretty much all the adults. And then at 10:15 on Sunday morning, they just switch gears and they start a formal service, and there's preaching and all that. But the idea of delegated authority is that that most people in a group are operating under the authority of another. So the pastor represents Christ to the church, and he's leading. And a lot of healthy churches have multiple elders who are accountable to each other, and they're doing work of ministry, but it's not their job to do the work of ministry alone. It's everyone's job. So the minister, the shepherd's job, is to do soul care. When there's a need, they come and they comfort and they counsel and they serve in different ways, but also to train up other people to do the work of the ministry. Because in any situation where you have delegated authority, there's training involved, as well as responsibility for each person to another. Ultimately, that pastor is responsible to God and hopefully to other ministers on staff if it's a multi-staff environment or some other situations put up there. But just trying to help you get your head around this idea of delegated authority. And it's a biblical concept throughout the Bible, and I'll do another lesson kind of fleshing that out. But hopefully this helps you understand that this principle applies in nonprofits and businesses, in churches, and in other places. And when you can see that playing out, it helps you have a better mind for organizational leadership and what healthy delegation can look like.